The left one, Cade, he gets tripped up, gets it to May, and over the line. He's May going in on goal. He scores!
Welcome to the Overtime with Mayday podcast.
Hey, Maisie, what's going on? Welcome, buddy. It's been a while. What have you been up to?
Dude, I'm so fired up. Winter's almost over here. And you know what? It's been cold and snowy here for the last 4 months. But, you know, at the end of the day, hockey's back playing. A lot of teams, trade deadlines coming up, clearly. Hockey's a great spot right now. I love the last 20 games of the season, watching them, seeing like playoff pushes. But I can't wait to talk to our guest today, Rock. One of my favorites, Montreal Canadian, great, Boston
Legend.
Bruin, legend, and a guy that I looked up to. And I'm really excited.
He's, you know what, Maisie, you hit it right on the head. He's one of my all-time favorite hero guys. I love him. I love his mettle. I love his honesty. I love where he comes from. I love that whole Bostonian kind of, gruff that he brings to everything. I do have to say, with the playoffs just looming, your Buffalo Sabres, brother. Holy smokes. What a turn of events for those guys. Looking fabulous, by the way.
Looking fabulous. And by the way, they just added to their team today on this interview on trade deadline day. They picked up Logan Stanley last night. My roommate, his rookie season, second last year of my career, Luke Shen. So two defensemen from Winnipeg. They just picked up. And you know what? They got a guy today, just before I got on, connected, Sam Carrick from the New York Rangers, who, by the way, has got more character than in his pinky finger than most players. Buffalo, they just added 3 solid guys. That Logan Stanley is 6'7", so he's a big, solid, tough guy, big shot from the point. If Buffalo is rolling right now, they just improved their team big time. Yeah, it's actually going to be fun to watch.
It's going to be fun. I mean, lots of stuff coming up. We may have some new things coming on a potential live game watch. We'll tell the fans a little bit later on if we can make that happen. We'll have some teasers on that coming up. But looking forward to our next guest. And I think we should drop the puck on this guy because he's a legend. We don't want to make him wait because he's going to probably kick my ass.
Well, let's go. Let's introduce him.
All right, brother. All right. Hey, everybody. It's Rocco, the grocery stick of Overtime with Mayday podcast. This interview has so many great and inspirational stories. We had to break it into 2 separate sessions. Make sure you don't miss a thing and tune in next week for part 2 with Chris Nilan on Overtime with Mayday. Question: when was the last time you had your oil changed? If you're like most of us, it was probably long overdue. That's where the great Canadian oil change in Coquitlam comes in. No appointments, no waiting, just drive in, stay in your car, have a coffee. You're back on the road in a couple minutes. Their certified technicians handle oil changes, fuel top-ups, routine maintenance while you wait. It's fast, professional, hassle-free, exactly how car maintenance should be. So the next time you're in a vehicle needs an oil change, head to the Great Canadian Oil Change in Coquitlam, BC. Ask for our very good friend of the podcast, Normie Lobb, a solid hockey player back in the day and a true supporter of the game we love, hockey. Drive in, drive out, done. Tell them the pod sent you. Set the tone. Check them out today. You'll be glad you did. Get an on-site discount with code OT with Mayday. That's OT with Mayday. Well, today, let's drop the puck today with our next guest. He grew up in Massachusetts, where he played his youth hockey with Parkway West Roxbury. Later played college hockey with Northeastern University Huskies from 76 to 79, averaging 3.5 minutes in his last season of penalty minutes in his last season. Was selected 231st overall in the 1978 entry draft by my favorite hockey team in the world, the Montreal Canadiens. God love them. An absolute fan favorite, a fearless warrior. Played in the NHL from 79 to 92 with the Montreal Canadiens, the New York Rangers, his hometown Bruins, and then the great Serge Savard brings him back to Montreal for his final season. One of only 9 players in NHL history, that's right, NHL history, that has recorded more than 3,000 PIMs. He holds the record for penalty minutes average for per game at .42 per game, has the most penalty minutes in a single playoff at 141. He has the record for most penalty minutes in a single game on March 31st against the Hartford Whalers. While playing with his hometown Bruins, he was assessed 10 penalties, 6 minors, 2 majors, 1 misconduct, and 1 game misconduct for a total of 42 minutes. Love you. Played 688 games in the NHL regular season, had 110 goals, 115 apples, 225 PIMs, won the Stanley Cup with my blessed Montreal Canadiens in 1986. Team USA, was selected over Brett Hall. I have to put that in there because I love kind of rubbing that a little bit. Currently hosts his own podcast, the Stick Podcast, Raw Knuckles with Chris Nilan. Please welcome the legend and the reason to this day I wear number 30 when I play hockey, to our humble podcast, Mr. Chris Nilan. Nux, it's so amazing to have you on.
Well, thanks for that intro, Rocco. I got to tell you, that was a mouthful, huh?
You got some records, brother. You got some records.
No, listen, it's funny. I did I'm an ambassador for a mental health foundation, the Lawrence Eddy Mental Health Foundation. And back in the fall, I did 4 different shows where I told my life story in front of 300 people a night. I was on the stage for 2 hours a night, telling, where I grew up, how I grew up, my career, touched on my career a bit, and then what happened to me in retirement. For that, we had to come up because they wanted videos and pictures and stuff. So my dad passed away recently.
Sorry about that, by the way.
Yeah, a few years back, but we went to the house and we got my mom and dad kept everything. All this stuff I got behind me, I used for the podcast. I had none of this. My mother had it all in her attic back in Boston. And I went there with Jamie and my wife, and we started going through everything. And I'm going through this old hefty alligator trash bag, and I pulling socks out, hockey socks. And I get to the bottom of it and found my rookie jersey. That's my rookie jersey behind me. It was in an alligator trash bag. But that being said, I had all these tapes, and they had all these tapes, and so I had to find a VCR to play them. And I went through the VCR, right? I plugged it. My father had 30 of them, and I'm popping them in, and I'm going back and forth, and I could not believe all the stuff, and I'm watching it all again, and I'm going, I remember all of it. I remember every one, and I'm going through it, and I'm looking at it, and I'm going, geez, what the hell was I thinking there? I'm like this guy's out of his mind. That's when it really hit, because I've seen clips of it and all that, but when I started watching it all, I'm going, you know what? I was crazy. I touched the wires together quite a bit for different reasons. It was nuts. It was because Jamie, my wife, she never seen me play, she was born the first year I played in the NHL. So that'll tell you something. She didn't, and she's from Hawaii. So she didn't know nothing about hockey. And she's looking at these things going, who is that? That was me.
That's what made you fearless. It's like listening to Howard Stern. We never know what's going to happen next. God love you, right?
Mm.
Hey, listen.
Well, I wouldn't say it was fearless.
You were as crazy as a loon, man. I remember. No, I got to get there, but why don't we just jump right in? 1986 playoffs, Montreal. I believe it's 86 playoffs against the Quebec Nordiques, and get after it.
Yeah, 86, the Nordiques. I don't know.
Isn't that the big brawl? Is it like
that was
that's when Jean Hamel knocked out Louis Slager?
Yeah, that was I believe the year before. The year we won the cup, it was 86. We played Boston, Hartford, the Rangers, and the Flames. So it was the year before. But that brawl, that was crazy. Listen, here's the deal. Bruce Hood was a ref, and I know in his book he blamed it on me, but he lost control of the game, won, and God rest his soul. But, he's going to bust my balls. Even he's probably up in heaven looking down at me saying, that bastard. But, screw you. Here's what happened. The end of the period, Carbonneau, my sentiment. I wasn't on the ice at the time. Hunter knocked him down in front of the net and had him down. He got on top of him and started mushing his face in the ice and punching him in the back of the head. So, like, what am I going to do? I got to try and get to him. So the period ends and everybody's out there, and I try and get to him, and everybody's getting my way. Randy Mola, somebody else grabbed me, and I said, this is getting crazy. And I just cracked Randy Mola, try and get him off me so I could get in on Hunter. And then all hell broke loose. And yeah, so they blamed that on me. But, listen, it was the Battle of Quebec was one that, it had every element. You had big city Montreal, bilingual, basically unilingual city, Quebec City, smallest city, Journal de Montreal, Journal de Quebec, who had the best hot dogs, who had the best jersey. It was just like, and we had Lemaire, they had Bergeron, the Tiger. It was crazy, but I remember after that, we'd get taken in the locker room and, we go in the locker room and then we'll come out for the next period. I come out on the ice and Mola's coming around, I'm coming around. I said something to him, he said something, we weren't being kind to each other. But, all of a sudden, everything starts to go again. They grab me and they grab Randy. We weren't supposed to be on the ice. We were kicked out of the game already. No one ever came in the room and said, hey, 1, 2, 3 guys are out of the game. No one ever told us. So we were, okay, get ready to play again. And then, they nipped it in the bud with me because I got taken off the ice right away when they saw me out there. And Randy. And then Mark Hunts said he going to get Schlager after what he did to Jean Amel when he sucker punched him. Yeah. And he went after Louis Schlager. And it's very unfortunate that happened, certainly. Those guys were teammates, right? At a time, they were actually roommates. I had Louis Schlager on my podcast. I tried to get Jean on. I haven't seen Jean Amel since that night.
Okay.
Well, the end of that season. And, I tried to reach out to him, get in touch with him. I wanted to speak to him about it. He actually was going to sit down with Louis one time in an interview on TV here in Quebec. And he got up and left. And I had Louis on, and Louis struggled with some issues, addiction and stuff like that, alcoholism. And I had him on, and God, I felt it really tore him up, what happened there. It really tore him up. He had a tough time in life after that, wanted to get out of hockey. That's one of the things that was such a mark against him. I guess his guilt, and he everybody was against him, and yeah, he felt terrible. But if you haven't seen it on my podcast, you can go back and look at it. It was really a good episode. So anyway,
you know what? As a younger player than you, I was incredibly inspired by not only that event, because I remember where I was. I was in the Uxbridge Arena, and my dad played hockey for the Uxbridge Blackhawks, adult team over 35, whatever, senior hockey. And I was there, and I remember watching, and everybody was in the imagine it was like a legion, and we were watching that game, and all hell broke loose. It might have been the coolest thing that I ever watched as a kid.
Yeah.
And then maybe right around that same time, Jack Nicklaus walk in a few putts, and he wins his Masters, his last one. That was right around that same time where I was really a young, impressionable kid. Chris, I made the Buffalo Sabres in 1991, and you were with the Boston Bruins. And I remember going into Boston, and we played you early in the season. And I want to say you ran over, I think you were galloping down the ice, and you ran over Kenny Sutton behind the net and blew him up, and all hell broke loose. And I was on the bench, and it just, I thank goodness I was too young. I was definitely willing, but I was afraid of my idols. And, when it coming in, like, big eyes and being the younger guy, I didn't have to go after you or get to you, which was fantastic. God bless you, because you're such a great dude. And then you made the All-Star game. Like, everything about your career, being an American, being from Boston, obviously getting drafted to Montreal. You and I met for the first time where I actually had a connection to you, was we played in a poker event in Montreal, and Bobby Probert, yourself, and I went for dinner, and I got to know you at a different level. And I got to tell you, I'm so
Yeah.
pumped that you're here with Rocco and I.
And I appreciate that. It's funny. I remember when you just come in, and I wish I was fucking scared of my idols, because O'Reilly was my idol. And I'll never forget the first game I played at the Forum against Boston. I fought Jonathan off the, first period. Next period, and then it was a big change. It was a big turning point in my career early on. I'm glad it happened to me. Doug Jarvis got thrown out of the face-off, and I forget who O'Reilly was playing that set. They both got kicked out of the face-off, and I wanted to go in and take it because O'Reilly was in there. Bob Gainey went in. I said, Bob, let me take it. Bob, go ahead. So I beat O'Reilly on the draw, and he chopped me right away. So I'm like, okay, let's go. And I know he's a lefty. So I said, I'm just going to throw my right. And I threw one punch, and he hit me with two lefts right on the button, and the blood just poured out of my head. I didn't go down, but I stayed on my feet. My eyes were all water. I couldn't see. I'm like, oh. I just fought every guy in the American League, but this is a different level, you know? And I went to the penalty box, and I remember my pride is just decimated. And I got the towel, and I'm going like this, and I wipe, and I look over, and there's O'Reilly going like this to me. Like, hey, kid, you should have known.
Right.
Right. I grew up in Boston. I grew up watching me. He was my guy. And man, right from that point on, I said to myself, I have to have a technique here that allows me to, because I wasn't the biggest guy. You're not the biggest guy either, Brad. It's easy to stand there and you throw like crazy, and next thing you get hit, you break your jaw, something happens, and it shakes your confidence. I said, I got to fight smarter than that. I got to know what guy's a lefty and a righty and tie that up and start to use my other hand and switch up, throw uppercuts, do different things. And that fight there really was a stepping stone and a turning point for me, because there's no way I would have lasted if I didn't fight smart, if I didn't become a good technical fighter. I grew up fighting in the street, not on the goddamn ice. And I had to learn, and I learned a lot in the American League, but I even had to learn at the NHL level, because the guys were bigger. They had longer arms, like Dave Brown, Semenko. Oh yeah, I'm going to go toe to toe with him. I'll let him fucking string me out at the end of his arm, and then I'm in trouble. I got in tight on guy. I fought smart. Some people say, oh, he ties up guys smart. I don't give a shit. I'm here. Never broke my nose.
No, you know what? It's amazing. I never broke my nose either. Although
yeah, there you go.
It's got a big knob on the end of it. But
I certainly hope so, because somebody's missing out on the other end, I would think.
You know what, Chris? So you grew up in Boston. Maybe go back to the humble beginnings. You talked about your mom and dad and having your jerseys and all your memorabilia. I know you grew up in a tougher environment. Obviously, you fought on the street and stuff. How did you springboard? Like, what was your pathway to become a recognized hockey player? It must have been a different path, because hockey wasn't. Although the Bruins were huge. The youth hockey system down there wasn't completely refined.
Yeah, well, Bobby Orr came. Okay, I'll tell you, to be honest with you, my pathway to the NHL was through the criminal justice system.
Okay,
and I'll tell you how. Well, when Bobby Orr came to town, the Bruins, everybody loved Orr. I mean, he's the king in Boston. All these rinks started getting put up in neighborhoods because they wanted to keep the kids off the street corner. So at the end of my street, they built one of those rinks. And I used to go up there public skating all the time. That was the first thing you could do. And I went up there and public skated every day. And then they finally started a house league hockey, and then they started West Roxbury youth hockey. West Roxbury is an Irish neighborhood within the city of Boston. And they did a Boston neighborhood hockey league. So every little neighborhood in the city had a team, and we play against Italian kids from East Boston. We play against the Irish kids from Charlestown, Irish kids from South Boston. It was called the BNHL, Boston Neighborhood Hockey League. So that's where it kind of started with me, the West Roxbury Youth Hockey House League. My dad was part of that. But as I got older and started playing, Pee-wee into Bantam and stuff, one of my coaches started a team called Hub City. It was an all-star team from around the city. I ended up making that team. that coach lasted a couple years, and then he moved on, and we got a new coach came in. He was a judge. His name was Judge Paul King. And Judge King was awesome. He had arthritis. He was all hunched over. He's the Chief Justice of the most violent court in the city. And he had like 6 kids of his own, 2 boys, Down syndrome boy, and 4 girls. And this guy be on the bench all day, hunched over, and he'd come down and be on the ice with us 2 nights a week, and then we'd have a game. And I don't know where he found the time, but the judge absolutely loved me. And I loved him. He was an awesome guy. He used to take me for pizza all the time and talk. You know, I had some shit going on and some trouble. And then I ended up in his courtroom one day. I got in a fight I had a couple friends of mine. We got in a fight. And in the incident, it was really violent fight. And in the incident, one kid got his skull crushed and he lost an eye, and the fight almost died. And we all end up having to go to court. I show up in court. Who's there? My hockey coach on the bench, and he had to recuse himself from the case. And I ended up going through the process and trial and all that shit. But anyway, the judge grabbed me after that. Man, you got to straighten your life out. You got to get serious, blah, blah, blah. So my senior year in high school, I played high school hockey. First year I made the varsity team. I was a junior. So I played 2 years at the varsity level. And my last year at Catholic Memorial, where I went, everybody's going off to college. I wasn't the best student, right? And I wasn't the best hockey player. But I didn't know what to do. And I got I was referred to maybe going to, all kids are going off to college. I mean, what am I going to do? Work in a pizza joint the rest of my life? And I ended up getting referred to a prep school up in Lake Placid, New York, called Northwood. And Northwood School was known for hockey, really good hockey school. And you go there for a year and you get a shot at going to college. Well, the judge wrote me a recommendation. Unbelievable. I got in, I got scholarship money, and he told me 3 things. You know, stay out of trouble, number 1. 2, do good in school, and, you know, work your ass off in hockey. Fine. I did that. I got out of Northwood. But my last game of the season was at Boston College. We were playing their JV team. And the judge was coming to the game. He comes to the game, and after the game, I see him, and he's standing with a guy. He said, Chris, I want to introduce you to Fernie Flaman, former Boston Bruin. Fernie was the head coach of Northeastern. They were friends. I never knew it. So Fernie says to me, hey, what do you think when you come back from Northwood, when you graduate? I want you to come in and see me. We'll talk about you maybe coming to school. I graduated. I met with Fernie, and I got a full scholarship to Northeastern. My parents couldn't afford that. So the judge, again, saved my ass. He also saved my ass in the court case. Even though he recused himself, he helped me big time. And then I went to Northeastern, and after my second year, I get drafted by the Montreal Canadiens.
Unbelievable.
But listen, here's the real kicker. The judge was very good friends with Dickie Moore and Doug Harvey. And Doug was a scout at the time. And he met with them, unbeknownst to me. And I only found this out at his funeral from Dickie Moore. And he called Dickie and he said, listen, I got this kid. I absolutely love him. He's like a son to me. Can you just get the Canadiens to draft him? And Dickie said, who is he? Blah, blah, blah. Doug Harvey came down to see me. Richard Scammell came down to see me, two of the scouts, and I got drafted. Judge King, if not for Judge King, I would have never played in the NHL.
Now, did Mom and Dad get to meet Judge King?
Oh, yeah.
Spend some time with him?
Yeah. He was just what an awesome guy. Terrible. I'm 68. He died 69 years old.
Oh, my gosh.
The arthritis and everything. He started getting a little dementia, but the arthritis really, really took a toll on his life. The guy poured everything into his family, the hockey, me, and in that goddamn courtroom he was in every day. But yeah, what an awesome human being,
Well, I have one question. So you win the Stanley Cup in 1986. Was Judge King around, and were you able to bring the Stanley Cup? Or you guys didn't get the Stanley Cup brought back to your hometowns, right? Yeah,
no, we didn't get it then.
Okay. Okay.
But the judge was kind of struggling at that time. But Judge, you ever see the movie, the series Columbo?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, remember the judge was kind of like that. Like he wore
Peter Falk, I think. Yeah.
yeah, he wore and he was kind of like that, right? But he was struggling a little bit when I come home, and I won the cup. I didn't get to bring it to him, but we had dinner and all that stuff, and then like a year later, when I ended up with the Rangers, I came back in the summer and he was doing worse. He was starting to lose it a little. And I'd pick him up and we'd go to lunch. And, he said, let's take a ride down. He loved going down the ocean. I would take him down the ocean. And he was a funny bastard, but we're parked. There's a parking lot right in front of the beach and the seawall's there and the wind, it's the spring and it's still not beach weather, but he loves looking at the ocean. And he get out and, he said, I got to take a piss. And like he was hunched over and he couldn't walk far. And I said, well, I'll take you to the bathroom. He said, no, I'll be fine. It's like broad daylight. He opens the door and gets out and stands right next to the car and is pissing. And the wind is coming off the ocean. It's blowing the piss back. It's going all over his car. I said, Josh, what the hell? Whatever. Just a peach of a man for me. Like, changed my life.
I love to hear that story. What do you got, Rock?
It's so interesting, Chris, when you're talking about individuals like that changed the outcome or the trajectory of your life. And Brad, I know you have a couple. I've had several, and from hockey, when I got me into a college, got me to play some junior, even though it was in the Peace Caribou Junior Hockey League where there were fights every other minute, including goalies like me. But that quality individual where they give you the opportunity to, here's the door, I'm going to open it for you, but now it's your role to kick it in and do what you need to do. So, kudos on you to do that. Blessing to find individuals that, see something special in you, even though sometimes we don't feel it in ourselves. Right. So that's fantastic. I'm gushing because I'm one of your biggest fans. I even got, and I've never done this before, where you hire and get a recording for a friend's birthday. I had you for my best buddy's birthday out of Kelowna. We grew up in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. He still has it on his phone. He plays it for me every time. And I was like, so that I just want to thank you for all that you've done. I do want to jump into a couple things. First of all, I do want to talk about that 1987 fight with the Philly Flyers. During pregame, the game hadn't even started. So there's that pregame brawl. I watched a bunch of the fights, as part of the precursors, a refresher to some of the great things that you've been a part of. But, and there were some monsters out there. You come out there, I don't even think your skates were tied on. You'd come onto the ice because who was it? Pepe that had to shoot the puck in the net. For the love of Christ, leave it to Pepe to start shit. Right. So tell us a little bit about that and we'll come in.
Wow, yeah, geez, that was crazy night. The brawl to end all brawls, right? That's what it was. And, I just remember, we're playing Philly, and I fought Brownie so many times already, and I knew at some point we'd probably have to fight. Mike Kean's coaching them, and I'm okay with that. And, I wasn't even aware that they were doing this. I remember in Philly, just the game before, when we were in Philly, I heard they were out there doing that. Him and Shane were doing it. That Shane, I think Pepe would pass the puck to Shane, and Shane would put it in their net, and we're gonna win the game now. Really helped us. And we get to Montreal, we're home, and Keenan got wind of that. He gonna put a stop to it, and he dressed. Back then, you could dress. He dressed like 26 guys in warm up. We didn't. We dressed whatever in the warm up. Guys were gonna play, so he planned for that. And then I'm in the locker room. I have my skate. I never take my skates all the way off, but I had them undone. And I have my shirt on. I'm sitting there. All of a sudden, one of the ushers comes running, and oh my God, they're going after Claude. And I'm there, what? There's a fight on the ice. I'm like, okay. So I do them up as quick as I can. And I get out there, and he's turtling with Hospital. And
surprise, shocked.
Yeah. And I'm looking around. I'm just trying to make sure no one sneaks up on me, but no one was really out there. Chico was there, and I was just watching it. All of a sudden, Shel Samuelson comes out, and he's standing next to me like he's going to do something and kind of grab me. I said, fucking let go of me, you know. And I said, I don't want to fight this guy because, one, he's not a fighter. I don't care how big he is. But, you know, I don't want to get tied up with him and then have one of the tough guys end up with one of my guys that shouldn't be with him. So I'm waiting on, okay, I stay away from a little, and all of a sudden, here he comes, Brownie, no jersey on him, though.
No jersey.
What
And
am I
that's
gonna
the
do?
only good part. The only good part is you've been in many street fights, so you didn't have to. That's different. You go back to that fight or flight mode, right?
Yeah,
Because as a hockey fighter, if a guy loses his jersey,
Oof.
you're swimming.
Yeah, it's tough. The one good thing that helped me is he had a flak jacket on for his ribs or something. But and it's funny. I have Brownie on my podcast. He's awesome. He's such a good guy. And we talked about all that. We talked about it down at fight night in Philly too. But I'm there. Geez, I wish I thought of coming out with no jersey on. He said, I didn't think of that. He said, I just always took my jersey off between periods. And I had it off. And then I heard all this stuff going on. So I just rushed out there. So I felt good about that he didn't think of it.
Right,
But,
right.
But,
nudge,
you
nudge,
know,
nudge, wink, wink. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm like, okay, so we get out there and then things start getting crazy. Everybody's trying to pair up and they got a ton of guys. And we're like, so I'm watching them and I'm backing up. I got to do this right. I can't just go at them. What am I going to do? You know, where am I going to grab them and be able to have leverage to punch? Like, you got to have that leverage. You got to hold on to something. I'm this shit. Let me figure this out. So they're going around and I'm backing off. Like Bob Gainey tried to get my way. Like I want you to play the game. He's telling me, whatever. I can't think of that now. And,
Yeah.
And then Chelly knew Brownie. Chelly, I think, played with him in Moose Jaw or something.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
And he knew him, so he's trying to keep him away from me. Chelly always tried to break up my fights. He always tried to get in for me. He's unbelievable.
I love Jelly. Yeah.
Oh, the best. And anyway, finally we go, and I just started throwing. And I grabbed him on the flak jacket. I couldn't grab his arm at all. And then he's swinging, I'm swinging. Away we went, and we get away from the crowd. We're out in the middle, and I started throwing, and then he started throwing. I went down, and I got right back up. And we went, I don't know, we were tugging and pulling on each other for, it had to be 8 minutes.
My gosh.
7 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
When you watch it, you can look on I don't even know, but I was friggin' tired. He was tired. And I remember we both were right by the blue line. I had my head in him, like almost in his armpit. And I had my nose. And he whispered, not whispered, but he said he said, have you had enough? And I said, no. And I threw another punch. Away we went. And it was just crazy. That's, when I see that, it comes up every year here. Match de la Vendredi Saint. The Good Friday. No, sorry, that's the Good Friday one. But it always comes up here too. Playoff time, they bring it up. And it was crazy. Thank God, no one really got hurt. And
now, when you go back to Montreal, and no, not everybody saw this, right? We didn't have the luxury of cable TV and internet and clips. So how was that received by your fan base?
Oh, my family?
No, your fan base. Like the Montreal Canadiens fan base. Not everybody would have seen it.
It was in Montreal.
Sorry, okay, in Montreal, but not everybody would have seen it. So how did everybody get excited about it? You must have been the talk of the town, right?
Well, I was like, the big thing is we lost the game. Okay. So it would kind of overshadow. We were done for the season. That was it. That was
right.
We got bounced out of the playoffs. So that was the big talk. But there was a lot in the newspaper and on the TV here about it. But, it's crazy. Like, I was so tired. Like, my muscles in my neck was strained we went for a long time. Like, it was long. And, like, Brownie didn't play. I had to play. I remember I was done. Like, I was pushing, and where are my legs?
He's a big man. Like, in that video, like, he was like huge, and you got to be like 6 feet. He was just like towering over. He was the head over you, right? And
I had
I'm
big
like,
book.
oh my gosh, I would have been like running for the boards.
No,
Nux,
couldn't
do you have
do that.
who's your in your time or before, during, and maybe even after you as you were a player? Who's your Mount Rushmore of tough guys? Like, or is that
I
Proby
gotta
for
put
sure?
Proby
Right?
there.
Yeah.
O'Reilly, tough.
Yep.
I don't care. You know what I'm gonna put there that no one puts there ever talks about? Clark Gillies.
Really?
Okay.
Wow.
Clark Gillies didn't
Hall
fight
of
a lot,
Famer.
but he caved your face in. I remember he fought Ed Hospodar in the Rangers, broke his jaw, knocked his teeth out, and broke his eye socket. 3 punches. Boom,
Wow.
boom, boom. Like he give it to him. I put him up there. Who the hell else? I would put Ty in there, but that would go to his head.
Hey, he is tough though, eh?
He's tough.
Ty's he's a tough.
Just so resilient. Yeah.
He's tough. Just ask him; he'll tell you.
So
I love him. I love Ty. Listen, he fought everybody. He didn't care, and he went. He could take a punch, and I met him at the Niagara Falls softball tournament when he was a little kid. Me and Chelly were doing an autograph session in a sporting goods store. This little kid comes in, hey, I'm a big fan of your Knuckles. When I met Ty in person the first time, he said, you're my idol. And I'm like, yeah, sure, But he said, no, Nux, I was a huge Habs fan. I wasn't a Leaf fan. I was a huge Habs fan. I love LaFleur and I loved you. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, Ty, yeah, I had to put him in there. There's so many tough guys, man. There's so many guys that all the guys who did that job, I don't care. They all belong on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
I like that answer.
Not 4 of them. They all belong because of what they did and who they did it for.
Yeah. I totally agree. We've talked about this on the pod a bunch of times where, I love today's game. It's fast, the edges, this, that, the other thing. But the unfortunate thing is there's no consequential behavior for shitty behavior, right? So there's nobody to stick up for, you run a goalie, you run your number one guy. I mean, like, there's no way a Sid Crosby should ever get a hit where he has to worry about a concussion. There has to be a consequence to that. And that is truly the law of that jungle, right? I've seen it. I've, played, obviously not at the levels that you guys have, but there is a code and a process, right? You do this, there is a deterrent if you do that, right?
Well,
and that's changed.
Yeah, that's tough. The league has taken that away from the players to an extent, a big extent. You don't see it as much anymore. They're taking away from the younger kids, right? In junior hockey, they're trying to nip that in the bud, neuter it. And, it's forgot. I still think there's a place in it. I hated the brawls. I'll tell you right now, I hated them. I don't have a problem with seeing 2 guys drop their gloves and go at it. Listen, I had enough of your crap, or I'm going to stick up for someone. And yeah, that's never coming back, I don't think, unless Brad May becomes the commissioner of the league one day. Or Knuckles.
I love.
It's not brought back.
Now, you know what? I don't think it is either, but there is a place for it. Spontaneous combustion, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And the value to it. I mean, you even talk about the Olympics just for a moment because it's just in the rearview mirror. Not that it came out on the winning side, but the Canadian team brought Tom Wilson. And by the way, heck of a player, and he's having a great year.
Yeah.
But the idea that there's a nuclear weapon, if you will, on the bench that's going to take care of issues, throwing the body around. But we obviously came through your decade prior to me, and then of course we overlap. But I grew up looking, idolizing, watching you guys, and then so lucky and fortunate to make the Buffalo Sabres. And I have a great question for you because I started with wonderful teammates. Guys that you played with, guys that are friends of yours, but Mike Ramsey, he was on U.S. Olympic, Miracle on Ice team, 1980 Olympic gold medal. And then I had Patty LaFontaine and Dale Hawerchuk and Dave Anderchuk. These guys are all in the Hall of Fame, right? Except for Mike. Who are the most influential guys? I think you said going to Montreal, what a culture they have. You said Bob Gainey, and even in that game, he didn't want you fighting because he knew you had to play. Who did you look up to, or who made a big impact on Chris Nilan?
Bob made a huge impact on me. Bob was kind of, he was my policeman. He had to police me, and he helped me in a lot of situations. You know, he knew I had to do my job, and I was going to do it. But, he really helped me with my skating. He helped him and Cabo, both 2 Hall of Famers I played with, him and Carbonell. They really helped me and had patience with me to become that guy who could play with them instead of the guy sitting on the bench and just going out and fighting.
Right.
And that was invaluable. I had, a friend that told me, follow Bob Gainey around the rink and try and emulate his stride, because he was such a good skater and he had a long stride for a big guy. And Bob was that, counter to me. He could calm me down, and I could get Bob a little crazy, because Bob was very, very reserved, always thinking, and an awesome leader and captain. But, like, there were times he had to settle me down and he'd get my attention, which was awesome. And I needed that, because sometimes the emotions run a little too high. But I remember one night in Hartford, someone ran him, Torrey Robinson, from behind or something. And I went after Torrey. And then Bob came over the penalty box when I was sitting in there. And he goes, "Hey, Knuckles, you don't have to stick up for me." And I'm like, "Look, you know,
Yeah.
that's how Bob was. He's like, you don't have to stick. In other words, you got your fucking hands full enough. You don't have to fucking stick up for me. I'll take care of myself." And that's how Bob was. He'd tell you like it is, and the way, if you needed a talking to. But Bob was awesome. I loved Guy. Guy was awesome to me. Guy Lafleur, just really good to me in my young years. He was just awesome. Larry Robinson, just Larry.
Jacques Lemaire. I mean, all the
Lemaire was awesome.
And I wanted to actually mention that. I know he just passed, and condolences. I know you guys were close. He loved you. He did, he was a huge fan of Chris Nilan, right? And so just everybody in that room, from the guys that have been there for a while, and then you get these rookies coming up like Patrick Roy, so it's just all of this stuff. But yeah, it's amazing. Just to even sit in that room, it's like I'd just be blown away, right? Blown away.
It was crazy. Like when I got drafted in 78, I was watching. See, I could have left school in 78 after I was drafted, and I would have been there. If I got called up, I would have been there for that 4th Stanley Cup in a row. I stayed in school. And we went to a friend of mine, me and my Franny Flaherty, we went to the practice in the playoffs, the Bruins Canadians. We were with the Boston Garden. We'd go in. Franny said, "Let's go watch a practice." So we watched the Bruins practice, and then the Habs. And after the Habs practice, Franny says to me, "Why don't we go up to Montreal and watch the game? I'll see if you can get tickets. I'll tell them you would go see them, and tell them you were drafted." And I'm there. Yeah, why not? Like, they're gonna know me, right? So we watched the practice. I go down afterwards. Claude Rell was standing there in the hall. I didn't know who he was at the time. He just had an overcoat on it. He looked important. So I went up to him. I said, "Hey, sir, you know what? I was drafted by Montreal Canadiens last year's draft." I said, I was wondering, could I get tickets for the next game in Montreal? He's like looking at me like, he goes, "No, I don't do this. Talk to that man over there." And he pointed to Howard Grumman. Irving Grumman was the assistant GM, and was his son. He was the road secretary. So I go to Irving. I said, "Hey, Irving, Chris Nilan." I said, "I was drafted by you guys." I said, "And I'm just wondering if I could get tickets for the next game in Montreal." And he goes, "You were drafted by us?" And he took out the guidebook. Remember them guidebooks?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Yes.
And he flips through it. "What's your name again?" I said, "Chris Nilan, Nilan." He looked. He said, "Oh yeah, you were. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll get you tickets." So I'm all excited, right? I come out, tell Franny. Franny had a big T-bird, right? White, big badass, white. We had sweatsuits, so we looked like a couple of hoods, right? So we go outside, and we get in the car, and we're going to leave. And we pull around the corner, and we see Lafleur, Lemaire, and Lupien standing on the street corner. And they're looking for a cab. So Franny goes, let's pick him up. Let's pick him up. See, but we'll give him a ride to the hotel. And I'm thinking, yeah, they might get in with us, right? So we pull up. Franny goes, hey, you guys want to ride to the hotel? You know, we're Bruins fans, but yeah, watch your Franny. You know, Franny hated the Canadians at the time, right? Hated them. So get in the car. And this car was pristine. It was gorgeous. Leather seats. Like you couldn't eat a piece of gum in there. So we get in the car and we're going, and flowers in the back seat. And they all got Stanley Cup rings on, right? All dressed up. And Guy goes, do you mind if I have a cigarette? And Freddie goes, yeah, go right ahead. Fuck, he's like, I'm like,
What are you going to say? It's Guy Lafleur. Come on.
We couldn't smoke a joint in the car. Okay, he let them smoke a cigarette. And so we're driving, and Franny goes, you know, he goes, see this kid here? He's going to be playing with you guys next year. And I'm like embarrassed. You know, they don't say that. I didn't want to say that. He said, no, he got drafted. No, he goes, he's going to be playing with you next year. And Lemaire's in the backseat. He goes, oh, yeah, how is he going to do that? So I turned around. I said, well, I don't know if I'm going to be playing with you, but I said, I play here at Northeastern. I said, I was drafted by you guys last year. And I'm all proud. They really, you were drafted by us. I said, yeah. He said, what round? I said, the 17th. And the three of them started laughing their ass off. Like, they're like, this kid don't have a clue. So anyway, boom, fast forward. I go to camp next year. I leave school after my third year and I get to training camp and I'm in the main locker room now for training camp.
Okay.
And
this is good.
I'm tightening my skates and I'm on the same team with Guy Lafleur. And Guy's over there. And I notice he's fucking staring at me. He's looking at me. And I finally looked straight back at him. I was nervous as hell. And he goes, hey, Tabernac. He goes, it's you, the kid from Boston. You give us a ride last year. I said, yeah, I fucking told you I was going to be here. So he goes, hey, come over. And he said hi to me. It was awesome. Then Lupien on the ice, same thing. I'm lined up against him on the faceoff and he's looking at me. I thought he wanted to fight me. And he goes to me, hey, you're the kid who gave us a ride last year from Boston. Thank you. And I said, yeah, I fucking told you I was going to be here. And then it happened. Same thing happened with Lemaire. I saw Lemaire. He was in Switzerland and he left that year and he came back from Switzerland at the end of the year and we were still playing. And we used to go over in the tavern every day across the street and have lunch. And I come walking in and Larry was sitting there with him. And Larry says to me, hey, Chris, someone wants to meet you. I guess Lemaire had said to him, who's this kid doing all the fighting? You know, like this new kid that's fighting. And so he wanted to meet me. So Larry said, I'll introduce him. And I come in. He goes, so I come in, I see Jacques sitting there. Hey, Jacques, how are you? And he looks at me. He said, it's you, the kid who gave us a ride in Boston. I said, I fucking told you I was going to be here.
How great is that?
I'm going to tell you, Jacques Lemaire never forgot that day in the car when I told him I'm going to be up there next year with you. And when he came here and was my coach, that guy took me from one level to another level. Yeah. He did shit with me on the ice. I was like his project. He told me I fight too much. You got to slow down. You fight too much. You get room on the ice. You don't have to fight as much as you fight. I almost didn't trust him, right?
Right.
Yeah. When I grew up in Boston, the guys stopped fighting. They were out of town pretty soon. You know, I saw all that. So, but Lemaire, to me, he's my best coach ever. There's no question about it. My best coach ever.
Absolutely.
You know what? You grew up, you came into the league with so many wonderful, like not only forget champions, hockey players, but men. Larry Robinson, my God, this guy's salt of the earth. You brought up Claude Lemieux. Now, of course, he's a controversial character. I played with Claude in Phoenix for a couple of years. Yeah. I love Pepe. And I know you guys won a cup there in '86 together. And you have any good stories about Pepe? Because he's somewhat misunderstood as an opponent because we all hated Claude. But as a guy on your team, I really enjoyed him.
Well, he was understood in our team when he was young. Like Pepe, man, it was embarrassing some nights for me. And I'll say it, I love Pepe. Claude Lemieux, I absolutely love. When he was young, again, you gotta grow up. And when you're young, you come in, you do some shit that's immature and stupid. And, but Pepe, would say shit to other guys on other teams that was just abhorrent. I wasn't a shit talker like that. I hate it. I wouldn't talk about your family. And if I had something like, I might swear at you or something, but that's it. I wasn't a shit talker. Pepe would say shit from the bench, and the guys would be looking, what the come on. I'm about, I'm with your wife last night. She was nice, and like crazy shit. Like, shut up. But he would piss everybody off, and then he'd suck them into penalties. And like, it was cool because it benefited us sometimes, but it was just a kind of a rat way of doing it. I didn't feel comfortable with it. I didn't like it, but what are you going to do? And here's what I'll say about Pepe. 86, 40 years ago, Pepe Lemieux and Patrick in the playoffs were absolutely incredible. Patrick wins the Conn Smythe. And I always say this, like, we had a really good defensive team. Like, we had the best goals against the league that year. And Patrick had come in partway through the year, right? And Patrick, again, he deserved the Conn Smythe, okay? Claude Lemieux had as much to do with us winning that year that Patrick did. They should have split it in half. You wish they could. But Pepe scored 5 game-winning goals.
Overtime, yeah.
5 game winners.
Crazy.
Yeah.
As a rookie, it was unbelievable what he did. We were like, and his head just got a little bigger and a little bigger. But, God bless him. And, Pepe, French kid, didn't speak a whole lot of English at the beginning. You talk to him today, it's unbelievable. He's an intelligent kid, and he's done really well. I love Pepe. I love Pepe.
That's incredible. Interesting. We talk about Montreal a lot, and it's a storied franchise. The players that have gone through, in fact, the Hall of Fame utilizes that dressing room as part of of one of the features going through the Hockey Hall of Fame, right? So what was it like playing there back then and being an alumni? Because, I know you live in the area and you've made Montreal your home. That's fantastic. And tell us a little bit about the experience. I know you're recognized everywhere you go. What's it like? Are people respectful? Just give us a little bit of insight on how amazing it is in Montreal, and even seeing the resurgence of the Canadians now. Finally, we got a little taste last year. Boy, the team looks great. So just give us a little bit of juices on the Habs.
Yeah, listen, I got sober and I moved back here, 15, 16 years, back in 2011. And I moved back because I had an opportunity in the radio here. And that's why I moved back, through my friend Mitch Melnick. God bless him. I had gone through a difficult time, and, I wasn't, I wasn't in a good place for quite a while. And so I get it. A lot of people aren't going to reach out and say, hey, we're going to hire you.
I got a job for you. Yeah, come on over.
Yeah. And I get that. And I totally understand it. But Mitch, I had known him for years, and he'd been in the radio since I played here. And he said, why don't you come on my show a few times? And, maybe at some point, he said, I think you'd be great in this business, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I moved back, and I was here about a year, and I finally got the show, and nerve-wracking as it was, because it's easy when you get interviewed, but when you got to carry the show,
it's
right.
And plus, radio, here, I'm not saying it's easy. You still have to do your homework. You got to, have good conversations. But on the radio, you're on that time crunch, and it's like you're looking at the clock, and so I was really nervous, and you got to hook the next segment, all that stuff. But anyway, I got back here, I got going in, and went, I had fun. I had a lot of help from guys that I worked with, Sean Campbell, Mitch himself, and, he was really, really good with me. But, the fan base, and little by little, I came back here. I didn't have a pot to piss in, a window to throw it out. I went through a difficult time. Like I said, I put myself where I put myself, not pointing my fingers at anybody. I got myself where I got myself. And I had to climb back up and battle to get, back to life. I came back here. I had a borrowed vehicle. A friend of mine let me use his car. I had go figure, a hockey bag full of clothes. That was my luggage. And I had my dentist, Zane, very good friend of mine here in Montreal, let me live in his condo for a few months. Well, as long as I needed to, until I could find a place to live and start chipping away. I had like $500 in my pocket when I moved back here. And, I chipped away. The people were awesome with me here. Got on the radio, started being a little more visible and getting out there. And, it's been awesome. The people here are awesome. I do get recognized. You know what surprised me, I guess? It's the kids. A lot of kids, like, I guess it's kind of like going to a museum and seeing a dinosaur, for the kids, because, they can see on YouTube and all that. They can look at them. The fathers tell them. So I go to the game, all these young kids, now this happened. It's like, it's crazy. But the fans are awesome. I interact with the fans, always have, always will. It's a great city, they didn't think I was going to move back here because, why would you move back from the States? But it was opportunity that come up. And now that I'm here, I mean, I lost my radio job because I got fired because I wouldn't get vaccinated. And, that's okay. I'm okay with that. I always, listen, you make decisions in life and you don't always get to choose the consequences, right? And they get laid on you, whether they're good or bad, you better be able to accept them, or you better change your decision-making process.
Well,
And,
Chris,
yeah,
speaking about the vaccination just for a moment, I wish I was you. I wish I didn't get vaccinated, although I did. Kind of that pressure that we were all under, wanting to travel and go to Europe. Actually, had to get a booster. What we're learning and know now, not necessarily the greatest thing that we all did, but you're so candid and raw and vulnerable. But when saying that you lost everything and you were going through a tough time, I remember that's kind of when you came into my life around that similar time. And I remember, if I'm not mistaken, you went and spent, I say 8, maybe even more than 8 months in Astoria, Oregon.
yeah,
I believe it's
yeah,
Astoria. And that's the
Yep.
only first time I ever heard of that place.
yeah,
You were telling me about it. And then I want to say you and I talked when you were out there a few times, because we had such a meaningful evening that, for me anyways,
yeah,
with you and Proby,
yeah.
and you went through that difficult time. Can you go back like Chris Nilan in 2009 to Chris Nilan, who was in Astoria, Oregon, going through that process? And I want to say, did you meet your wife today? I can't remember
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, that's where I
believe
met
you-
her.
Yeah, okay, that's where you met her. Okay, so talk about that, because there's a lot of people that are going to listen to this podcast that maybe are going through a tough time that might need some
Yeah.
guidance.
Well, here's the deal. I'll go back. The first time I went to rehab was in the year 2000. I was addicted to painkillers, pain medication. I was drinking a lot. I was struggling. And I was on Oxycontin big time. It started with Percocet, Oxycontin. I got addicted to it. I had a bunch of surgeries, and every time I had surgery, I would get the pills. Then it came to the point where I was taking pills all the time because I needed them just to keep the withdrawals away, the pain of withdrawal. So I was addicted. I ended up meeting with an NHL guy who does the intervention work, Dan Cronin, who's a wonderful guy. And he met with me, and I ended up going to treatment. I went in 2000, and I stayed sober for about just under 3 years, and I relapsed and started drinking again and got back on the pills and was messed up for quite a while. And then I was on the Oxycontin big time. It was crazy. And then they started changing the laws in the U.S., and they were cracking down the Oxycontin with doctors and everything, and couldn't get it anymore. It was very difficult. So when you're addicted to opiates like I was, you will do anything to keep the feeling of withdrawal away, the pain of it, the joint pain, the nausea, the sickness. And, you can try and kick it on your own, and I did so many times, it just, I ended up not being able to get them, and I ended up snorting heroin, and I ended up in a really bad place. And then I had overdosed, and I was a mess, and I called Dan Cronin. I had his number, and I called Dan, and he said, "Hey, Chris." And I said, "Yeah, Dan, you there?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, I've been waiting for your phone call."
Wow.
And I said, Dan, I'm sick. I'm not well. He said, I know. I said, can you help me? And that was so hard for me to pick up the phone and humble myself. And the first time I just met with him was a meeting, and he helped me get in. But now I had to make a phone call. Somebody else set that other thing up. And it was so hard for me to pick up the phone. But boy, when he said, yeah, I'm going to help you, I'll have you on a plane tomorrow. Talk about relief, because I knew I'd be able to get that help. And that's when I went to Astoria. And I got in a bad car accident December 7, 2008. I flipped SUV Cadillac and got ejected from the vehicle unconscious. And it was about a week after that I called Dan. And, he had me on a plane. I went to Oregon, and I stayed, I was in treatment for 3 months. I met my current now wife there, Jamie. She was in treatment, which is a no-no. You're not supposed to do that. And we understand it now, and we did kind of then, but we had this connection. And because when you get out of treatment, you got to take care of yourself before you can take care of anybody else. You got to get your life in order. And we ended up being together, and we both relapsed together. I ended up in a bad place again. We both had relapsed, and I came back east here to do some, to make a few bucks. And I left her there, and I ended up calling her when I got here, and she didn't pick up. And I called her, and I called her, and I called her, and I called her. And, she was just, like, I thought she was dead. I thought she died. She overdosed. I knew she was dead, put it that way. And I called all day, all night, nothing. Next day, I called again, nothing. And then probably around 2 in the afternoon, she called me and said, hey, Chris, where the hell were you? You fucking had me crazy. I thought you were dead, blah, blah, blah. She said, Chris, stop. You're going to die. I'm going to die. She said, you got to get well again. I got on a plane. I flew home to Hawaii, and I went back into treatment in Hawaii.
Wow.
You need to get well. You are going to die. I love you and I care about you, but I got to take care of myself. You got to take care of yourself. So what I do, I got on a plane. I flew back to Boston. I didn't even go back to Oregon. And I checked into a hotel, and I continued using drugs. I ended up shooting heroin in that hotel room for quite a while. That was probably around November, and January, February, March, April, May. Yeah, by May, I overdosed one evening, and I woke up. I was on the floor in the bathroom, a mess, and I just was in tears. I was like,
Is that rock bottom for you?
yeah, it was. But I remember praying to God, the God that I grew up with, and please God help me. Here I am in the foxhole. Now I'm desperate, and so I remember praying, please help me. And I crawled back up, and I got in bed. I was about 7 a.m, and I woke up to a phone call, and the phone was ringing, and I picked it up, and it was Jamie. And she said, Chris, you're going to die. Here's the deal. Here's what I did. I love you and I care about you. I don't want you to die. I set you up here with a doctor here in Hawaii. His name is Dr. Kevin Kuntz. He's a Vietnam veteran, former heroin addict, and he helps people with addiction now. I want you to come. Said, I got you a plane ticket to come here, but do me one favor. Don't show up here fucked up. So I'm, that's a long flight to get drug sick on. But it's exactly what I did. And I showed up there, and she picked me up at the airport, took me right to see him. I met with him a few days straight. I started doing what I was supposed to be doing in recovery, and my life started to change incrementally, day by day, paying attention to the things I was supposed to be paying attention to, and actually doing some work on yourself. The life I guess I wanted back was beyond and I always say that the life I truly wanted was beyond the work that I was avoiding, because you have to do work on yourself. You can't just think, oh, I'll stop drinking, I'll stop doing drugs, and everything will change. You have to really take a deep dive into you and your past, and then make some changes. And, changes in here, not outwardly. And I finally got serious about it. And, I would, if I got sober the first time and stayed sober, I'd have 26 years today. Didn't happen. If I got sober the second time, I'd have 17 years. The third time, I would have 15 years. But in 2015, my mom, who was suffering from dementia, had a stroke and was really thought she was going to die. And I relapsed. And thank God I relapsed in the hospital in Boston. They rushed me. I was gone. I ended up snorting something, heroin. I thought it was fentanyl, and I was gone. And they rushed me to the emergency room and brought me back. And the next morning, that day, I talked to a very good friend in recovery who I should have talked to before I went there. And I got back doing what I was supposed to be doing. So yeah, I had these setbacks because I avoided doing some work, and I avoided doing things that I know work for me now. I always thought I could do it on my own. I don't need someone else. I can do it by myself. And today, I rely on close people in the program for certain things. I live a more spiritual life today, not a religious life. I love getting out of myself and doing for other people. I've gotten back to that in a big way. Yeah, life has gotten so much better. I have a great life today. I'm 10 years sober, December 7th, this past year. This is my longest stretch of sobriety. And I just got to keep it in the day and keep moving forward and doing the right thing. And I have been. It's been a tough road. I don't point no fingers. I know I had some difficulties in my life. You know what don't kill you will make you stronger.
Chris, it's the story that you've told is just it's incredible. Like, I mean, the fortitude to keep fighting and doing it. I'll tell you, the world is a better place with you here. The world is a better place with the stuff that you're doing. So just to see that, and from where you came from, and then the adversity to that. I mean, nobody can understand addiction unless people have gone through that. Just like mental health, if you've not experienced it or had somebody go through it, you cannot truly help others that are going through that process. So, God bless you for all of that. And one of the things, going back to the radio and the COVID shot, I was a huge fan of Off the Cuff, and I even gave up my Bell telephone after all of that crap. And I even got the COVID shot, but I gave up that shit so fast. I was like, you're saying you are willing to toss somebody off because of one thing or the other. I mean, it's radio. You can lock them in a room. It was just kind of that process. I wanted to toss that out. I do want to ask something specific, like myself and others, and I actually have the Last Gladiators on my iPad. I watch it all the time. I mean, it's inspirational, just for the trials and the process and the systems, and it talks with a lot of the people that I respect, as what they've gone through and what they've done, not only in the sport of hockey, but the challenges afterwards as well. Like even that transition to what we do next, or what you do next, right? I mean, when I played hockey, after I finished, played some college, played a little over in Europe. After I came back and finished, well, I was nothing without it. I've been playing hockey for 15, 20 years or whatever, but nothing to the level that you guys have. But for me, I needed that camaraderie. I joined the fire department, kind of building that system of that process. So I can understand that. It's tough. I do want to ask, I remember reading somewhere that in your first, I think your first wife, girlfriend at the time, was somehow related to Whitey Bulger. I just have to ask that. Being Italian, everybody thinks I'm a gangster with a name like Rocco. I'm sure when you saw my email come out, you're going, this guy's a hoodlum. He's here to kind of collect money, or he's going to bury a body, and I can help you do both.
Yeah, no, my first wife, her stepdad was him. Yeah,
Righty.
James.
Wow.
Yeah, and yeah, listen, I knew of him before I met him, face to face, which was a little unnerving, but
For sure. And there
you
was a
know,
story where he talks to you before your first date. Tell us a little bit about that, and
yeah,
then I'll get
well,
off Whitey Bulger. But just the fact that somebody of that caliber and that individual kind of with that background says stuff like that to you, and you're still there, it kind of attests to who you are, brother. So
yeah,
tell
well,
us that story.
when I came in, I met, Karen's mother, and he was there, and I met, hey, Jim, how you doing? And I knew of him, and you look at him, if you were gonna size him up, you'd say I'd beat the shit out of this guy. I could,
Yeah.
if we fought one-on-one, no weapons, he's done. But that ain't how it works. So,
Holy shit.
That's right. That's
and
exactly
not
right.
that, no, he's in good shape, good,
He worked out
but
every day. He was in good shape,
yeah,
but
I
he
know,
wasn't a
yeah, he
big
was.
man. Yeah.
So anyway, we meet and we talk, and then we go out into the car to leave, Karen and I, and the door opens up, and he yelled, "Hey, Chris!" And, hey, Jim,
Hey, are
what's
you
up?
in the NHL right now at this time, or is it prior to that?
No, just prior.
Just prior.
College.
I'm in college.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in college. And he says, "I want to talk to you. Come on in." So I'm like, Karen's all nervous, and so I go back in the house. She went to come in, and she said, "No, you stay in the car, Karen." So I come in, and he's standing there, got a gun, and he says, "Have a seat." So I sit down next to him on the couch, and he goes, "Listen, here's the deal." And I'm sitting over here, and he's sitting here, and the gun's like this. So, like, come on, like, I know he's not gonna fucking shoot me on the, at least he's gonna give me a chance for one day, right? And he might shoot me in the second one. But so he goes, "Listen, I know Karen likes you, you like Karen, and you guys got a good relationship and all this, but there's some rules here, and the rules are treat her like a lady, open doors for her, respect her, don't ever lay a fucking hand on you, or else." So I said, "Okay, I can live with that. I get it. Those are all things I can live by." And I said, "But Jim," I said, "actually, you didn't have to pull out a gun to tell me that." He said, "Well, that's the way I do business." So I said, "Okay,
Wow.
cool." Then I went back out. "Thanks. Have a good night." And then the door opens again. I'm there. Oh, what's he want now? He says, "Come in." And he peeled off like $500, said, "Have a good night, cash." And I'm a college kid, 500 cash. I'm like, yeah.
Goes a long way.
And we had a great dinner, and I survived the first date.
Wow.
Wow.
Great story, brother. Hi, everybody. It's Rocco from Overtime with Mayday Hockey Podcast. You know me as the grocery stick that hangs out with Brad May and all these great NHL hockey players and alumni. I want you to like, subscribe. If you like our podcast, heck, even if you don't like our podcast, please like, subscribe, tune in, tell your friends. Thank you very much.